Welcome, dear listener. Wherever you may be, whether you are tucked in bed beneath a cozy blanket, lying back with the quiet hum of the evening outside, or perhaps drifting gently into stillness after a long day, know that you are in the right place. Tonight, we'll set aside the noise of the world and step softly into another time. A time when myths were part of everyday life. When the gods were not distant, untouchable beings but rather part of the weather, the harvest, the sea, and the morning sky. We'll explore the peaceful, enduring similarities between the gods of ancient Greece and those of ancient Rome. Not through battles or thunderbolts, but through quiet customs, forgotten rituals, and the way people whispered prayers at dawn or lit oil lamps in the evening. This story won't be a dramatic tale of who conquered whom or a list of names from dusty scrolls. Instead, it's more like a quiet walk through ancient temples across olive groves and sun-warmed stone paths through kitchens, forums, and gardens. So take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. And let the ancient world rise slowly in your imagination like mist curling through marble columns at dawn. We'll begin with the Greeks. Long before the Roman Empire, there was the land of Greece. Not a single country but a patchwork of city-states nestled between sunlit coasts and olive-covered hills. Here, the gods lived close to the people. They were part of the land, the seasons, the winds that whispered through the branches of laurel trees. The Greeks didn't think of their gods as distant rulers. They were family, complicated, moody, sometimes playful, sometimes vengeful. They looked and acted like people. They quarreled, loved, feasted, and even grew jealous. But they also protected the home. Guided sailors, inspired poets. Imagine a small Greek village at dawn. The houses are made of stone and plaster, with flat roofs and narrow doors. Chickens cluck in the background. The sky is painted in soft shades of pink and lavender. Inside one of these homes, a woman lights a small oil lamp near the hearth. It's for Hestia, the goddess of the home and family fire. She doesn't need gold statues or grand temples. Just a simple flame and a quiet thank you. Hestia never married, never wandered the heavens. She stayed in every home, in every flickering flame that warmed soup or baked bread. In the same village, an old farmer steps outside and nods toward the mountains in the distance. Zeus, he whispers, keep the storms away today. And far off, in a rocky cove, a young boy tosses a pebble into the sea. For Poseidon, he says, before sailing out with his father. The gods were everywhere. Not locked in marble halls, but tucked into everyday moments. Centuries later, the Romans would conquer Greece. But instead of wiping out their myths, the Romans folded the Greek gods into their own world like new guests at an old banquet. The gods kept their powers, their stories, even their personalities, but their names changed. Zeus became Jupiter, the king of the gods. Hera became Juno, queen of marriage. Poseidon turned into Neptune, god of the sea. And gentle Hestia became Vesta, still guarding the hearth. The Romans respected the Greeks deeply. They didn't just take their gods, they built temples for them, wrote their names in Latin, and added Roman dignity to their roles. Where the Greeks saw their gods as wild and poetic, the Romans imagined them more serious, more orderly, more Roman. So while Zeus might have had affairs and thundered at the sky, Jupiter was expected to uphold law and duty. The Roman gods became reflections of Roman ideals, discipline, power, control. And yet when a Roman child whispered a prayer before bed, or when a traveler lit incense at a crossroads shrine, it was still a quiet, very human hope for protection and peace. Just like in Greece. Let's take a slow stroll now to Mount Olympus. In Greek myth, Olympus was not just a mountain, it was the home of the 12 Olympians. The main gods. The divine family. Each had their own domain, and together, they ruled over everything from the sea to the stars. Zeus ruled the sky. Poseidon, the sea. Hades, though not always counted, watched over the underworld. Hera protected marriage. Demeter nurtured the harvest. Athena, with her owl, guarded wisdom and cities. There was Apollo, god of the sun and music, and his twin sister, Artemis, who watched over the moon and wild animals. Then came Raz, fiery god of war, and Hephaestus, the lame god of fire and craft. There was Aphrodite, born of sea foam, who inspired love and beauty. And finally, Hermes, the messenger with winged sandals. Now, the Romans had their version of these gods too. The same powers, the same stories, just wrapped in Roman values and names. Zeus became Jupiter, Aphrodite, Venus, Raz, Mars, Hermes, Mercury. And while the Greeks celebrated the emotion, chaos, and beauty of these gods, the Romans saw them more as models of duty and statecraft. Venus wasn't just beautiful, she was the mother of Rome itself, through her son Aeneas. Mars was not just a brutal god of war, but a symbol of military might and civic order. In temples and forums, Romans offered sacrifices to these gods, hoping for safe journeys, strong harvests, and peace in the Republic. Most people in ancient Greece and Rome didn't meet the gods in grand temples. Their relationship with the divine was far quieter, more personal. In a modest Greek kitchen, a woman might toss the first crumbs of bread into the fire and whisper a thank you to Hestia. A child might pour a few drops of milk on the ground for Hermes, asking for good luck at school. In Rome, families had lares, small household spirits that watched over the home. These weren't Olympians, but they were tied to them. Small statues sat in a niche by the hearth, and each morning, a pinch of flour or a curl of incense might be offered in silence. Public ceremonies did happen, priestesses tending the sacred fire of Vesta in Rome, or festivals in honor of Dionysus, god of wine and revelry, but daily piety was mostly quiet. There were no sermons, no sacred books, only gentle rituals passed down through generations. A pattern of behavior, a rhythm. In this rhythm, the gods lived not above, but with the people. The gods weren't limited to thunderbolts and temples. They were tied to the rhythms of nature. In Greece, the myth of Demeter and Persephone explained the seasons. When Persephone was with her mother, flowers bloomed. When she descended to the underworld, the earth grew cold. This story wasn't just myth, it helped farmers understand why the fields changed, why the sun grew dimmer in winter. The Romans had Ceres, their own goddess of grain, echoing Demeter. And Saturn, an old agricultural god, remembered each winter during the festival of Saturnalia, when roles reversed, and joy filled the streets. When Roman farmers tilled the land, they often spoke softly to Tellus, the earth goddess, or Janus, the god of beginnings, before planting. They weren't shouting to the sky, they were whispering to the soil. In the soft hush of the countryside among rustling wheat and buzzing bees, the gods lived gently in nature. One of the most beloved deities in both Greek and Roman lore is Aphrodite, or Venus, as the Romans knew her. Born from sea foam, she was beauty personified. But she wasn't only about romance. She was the spirit of attraction, harmony, and allure. In Greece, she was both kind and mischievous. She made lovers swoon and kings fall. Her Roman counterpart, Venus, was given a nobler role. She became mother of Rome, ancestor of the Julian line, including Julius Caesar. In both worlds, she was celebrated with flowers, incense, and statues that adorned bathhouses, gardens, and home altars. Her presence was felt in the sweet smell of roses, the gleam of polished mirrors, and the hush of waves on the shore. Even now, her image lingers, in art, in perfume, in poetry. The Greeks honored Raz, god of war, but often with caution. He was seen as reckless, impulsive, and dangerous. The Romans had Mars, also a war god, but with a different energy. He was not chaos but discipline, strength, patriotism. Mars was second only to Jupiter in Roman esteem. He symbolized the Roman ideal of virtuous conquest, war not for destruction, but for the order of the Republic. His temples stood tall in military camps. His name was invoked before battle. And every march, named for him, new campaigns began. In contrast, Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom and war strategy, became Minerva in Rome. She remained calm and calculating, guiding generals, sculptors, and scholars alike. Together, Mars and Minerva represented the balance of muscle and mind, strength with strategy. To the Greeks, life and death were woven by the Moirae, the Fates. Three women who spun, measured, and cut the thread of each life. The Romans had the Pasi, and they also believed in destiny. But while the Greeks feared the whims of the gods, the Romans saw fate, fatum, as part of divine order. Unchangeable. A path you must walk. This belief gave rise to Roman Stoicism. Endure. Accept. Persist. Temples of Fortuna, the goddess of luck, were built across cities. People tossed coins and hoped for favor. But even she could not overrule fate. Both cultures honored the dead with quiet rituals. In Rome, during Parentalia, families visited tombs, bringing bread and wine. They whispered to their ancestors. Not in fear, but remembrance. Death, like the gods, was part of daily life, respected, but not feared. By now, you've seen that the gods were everywhere, in whispers, in kitchens, in coins tossed to fountains. But they also had their grand homes, temples. In Greece, temples sat on hills. White marble against blue sky. Inside, statues glittered with gold leaf and ivory. Not for the gods to live in, but for mortals to visit, to pray, to thank. In Rome, temples lined the forum, the civic heart of the city. Here, people brought offerings, knelt in silence, watched sacred fires burn. Festivals filled the calendar, Lupercalia, Saturnalia, Vinalia, each celebrating the gods through food, wine, and joyful rituals. Music, garlands, and soft chants echoed through the streets. Through these rituals, the myths were not just remembered, they were lived. And now, dear listener, as the stars rise over the distant hills of ancient Rome and a soft breeze carries the scent of laurel and myrtle through silent colonnades, we find ourselves at the end of our quiet journey. You've walked the marble halls of the gods. You've felt the hush of ancient rituals, heard the soft laughter of Aphrodite near the shore, and stood beneath the towering statue of Jupiter in Rome. Greek and Roman gods may share names, faces, and stories, but they reflect two different hearts. Greece, the land of poets, philosophers, and dreamers, gave us gods full of passion and contradiction. They laughed, they fought, they loved wildly. They were beautiful and broken, like us. Rome, the builder of roads and laws, molded those gods into symbols of power, structure, and destiny. The same stories, retold with the steady voice of empire. Yet both cultures remind us that myth is not about belief alone. It's about how we see the world. The whisper of the wind through olive branches. The crackle of a hearth flame as bread turns golden. The way we look up at the stars and wonder who might be watching. And so, as you lay here, soft and still, imagine you are in a quiet Roman villa, tucked beneath a woolen blanket, the night sky shimmering beyond a stone window, a flickering oil lamp by your side. Somewhere, not too far away, the gods are sleeping too. Good night.